Hey everybody, I have a video here for you today, and I've had a lot of questions based on my last few videos on the Shroud of Turin and the church naming Simon Magus as the figure on the Shroud of Turin. They're asking me, so Simon Magus is the historical Jesus or the real Jesus? And I don't think the real Jesus exists. I think he only exists on the pages of the Bible, and I have made videos in the past where I use the term real Jesus, and that's not the term that should have been used now that I think about it. It should have been the figure in real history who eventually evolved into the Jesus of the New Testament. I believe there was some real happenings that went on that are mirrored in the Jesus story, but the whole tale of Jesus is rewoven to fit the biblical narrative. And he is used just kind of as a mouthpiece for the religion of Rome, which became Christianity in 325, right after Eusebius visited Edessa, Turkey. Now, the questions people are asking is, can we find the real Jesus or the historical Jesus now? And was his name Simon Magus? And Simon Magus was just a name that the church fathers gave for this figure. Was his name Simon? Well, maybe. I want to read something here first. This comes from the religion of Simon Magus. Did you know that there was a third baptism in this original religion that eventually became Christianity? Let me read here. It was my going to the revealed height, which the world did not accept, my third baptism in a revealed image. And boy, that says a lot. That's very prophetic, that the world did not accept my third baptism in a revealed image. Well, let me tell you this. They still don't accept it today, that being the revealed image, being the Shroud of Turin. It's still not accepted by a lot of people. And boy, aren't those prophetic words? And that's the teachings of Simon Magus. I just wanted to share that. But can we find Jesus in real history? Well, this is from Josephus's war chronology. And let's find a character in here that most fits the Jesus story. And once again, Flavius Josephus or Josephus wrote the Jewish histories of the first century. Now, this character right here, Menahem, the son of Judas the Galilean, he breaks into the armory at Masada and gives arms to his own people, as well as to the robbers. He returns to Jerusalem as a king and takes command of the revolutionary forces and the siege of the palace. Well, that sounds interesting. Let's read what happens to this Menahem. And as soon as I read the name Menahem, I knew something was up, and I'll go into that in just a second. It says, Menahem, continuing to regard himself as an anointed king, enters the temple in royal robes. And reading about Menahem, his color was purple, so he came in a royal purple robe, surrounded by armed guards. He is attacked by Eleazar and his followers, and after many tortures, Menahem is killed. So, who is Menahem? Well, Menahem is a made-up name by either Josephus or Eusebius, who kind of tinkered with the writings of Flavius Josephus about 2.5 centuries later. And that is clear, and many historical researchers of ancient text have stated that. And it says at the very end of this particular piece, the city awaits the Roman reaction, seeing the grounds for war to be now beyond remedy, and the city polluted by the stain of a guilt as could not but arouse a dread of some visitation from heaven, if not of the vengeance of Rome. They gave themselves up to public mourning. The whole city was a scene of dejection, and among the moderates there was not one who was not racked with the thought that he would personally have to suffer for the rebels' crimes. And on this website here, it gives a little more detailed count from Josephus. It says this: Menahem and his party made resistance for a while, but when they perceived that the whole multitude were falling upon them, they fled which way everyone was able. Those that were caught were slain, and those that hid themselves were searched for. A few of them escaped privately to Masada. As for Menahem himself, he ran away to the place called Ophla, and lay there skulking in private. But they took him alive and drew him out before them all. They then tortured him with many sorts of torments, and after all slew him, as did by those that were captains under him also. So what is exactly to say about Menahem? Well, they caught him in Ophla, and where is Ophla? That is adjacent to, I believe, the Kidron Valley, where the Garden of Gethsemane is. They took him out, and it says here, they drew him out before them all. Then they tortured him with many sorts of torments, and that certainly fits the crucifixion story and the Shroud of Turin. And they also slew captains under him also. Maybe 2 other guys were crucified with him. That's possible. Now, who is Menahem? Well, when I read this, I was frustrated. I read this maybe last winter, and it wasn't the name I was looking for, because this is obviously, and people who comment on this name Menahem says it was placed in Josephus, either by Josephus or later editors, namely Eusebius, maybe 2.5 centuries later. This name was put in place of somebody to cover up who somebody really was, and this Menahem, who is he? Well, if we go to the Bible here, I will leave this link below. You can read about him, but he was not a cool guy. He comes from the Old Testament kings, and he worships idols, and it's perfectly, it fits why they chose this name as kind of a discreditation campaign behind this Menahem and who he actually was. And I will leave the link for that below. But can we find this Menahem in real history? Who was he? Well, let's take a look. Now, before I go into this story that I found that matches Menahem, I should have said that the Menahem story of his followers fleeing and him escaping to near the Kidron Valley and eventually being found and caught, that matches the story of Simon Magus's followers fleeing and Simon hiding out when the Romans came in laying retribution, and Simon was eventually found. That matches Simon Magus' story, and the story of Menahem match in that respect. But when searching for Menahem and a story that matched, because Menahem is obviously a pseudonym used by Josephus or Eusebius to cover up the real name of this person, but I found this story and this seemed to match pretty freaking well. This person here, he goes into the fortress at Masada, and he considers himself, he names himself Lord of the city, or the Messiah. And who is this person? He comes from royal lineage, and he's directly associated with the rebels at around the Dead Sea, the authors of the Dead Sea Scrolls, the Essenes and Sadducees, and a group of the Pharisees, I believe, were also there. But who was this person's name in real history? It was Simon Bar Giora. And when I read the name Simon, I almost fell off my stool. So we have a story coming from Josephus in the war chronology that a character named Menahem, which is obviously a pseudonym, the story matches the Jesus story almost precisely. He marches into Jerusalem in a royal purple robe, names himself Messiah. He is caught and endures many tortures, and Menahem is killed and crucified. That matches the story of Simon Bar Giora, who I believe then was later called Simon Magus, because this story was totally rewritten in the New Testament. Christianity was born. I believe he came from royal lineage of Edessa, Turkey. This all fits. But can we match Simon Bar Giora to Simon Magus, besides the first name, and besides the fact that the Simon Bar Giora story matches a guy who was crucified and matches the Jesus Christ story? I think we're getting down to some serious foundations of the story here. Is there a smoking gun that associates Simon Bar Giora to Simon Magus, and that would complete the whole puzzle? Well, yes, there is a smoking gun. It says this: after Jerusalem had been almost entirely taken and the temple had been burned down, Bar Giora and other fearless men withdrew to the upper city, from which they negotiated with Titus, offering to surrender on the condition that they should be allowed to go free under oath and not to draw weapons. The Romans refused, and a struggle broke out afresh. It says the upper city also fell a prey to flames. John surrendered, but Bar Giora, resisting to the last, took flight through subterranean passages. Hunger, however, drove him to come forth. He startled the Roman soldiers by his sudden appearance in a white shroud. There is the smoking gun, the connection that connects the Simon Bar Giora to Simon Magus. And then this was obviously added, as many other texts were added to cover up this story. It says, but they quickly recovered from their fright, seized him, and led him to Titus. That obviously was added to make it appear that the Simon Bar Giora never died, but his story matches Menahem, who was crucified on the cross after he named himself Messiah. Simon Bar Giora freaked the Roman soldiers out by his appearance in a white shroud. Simon Magus is named by the church fathers as the man in the shroud. I just thought I'd find the historical Jesus for you. Hope you thought this was interesting. You have a nice day.